Hang tight. There we go. All right, so we're doing it live. Let's do it live. Oh yeah, Sean says it's 7:01. Oh my goodness! Like Sean's like 7:01, man. And Pulverizer saying, get out of the chat, start streaming. So when you're in, so right now Andrew is in Seattle. Are there just they're just freaking, like I said, zombies all over the place. Like right now, Andrew, you just meth heads and stuff. And
I give Seattle this. It's better than Portland. For whatever that's worth. I mean, Portland's really bad.
Portland is that, like downtown Portland is that bad? Where just all these idiots are. That's crazy, man.
Well, I mean, with Portland, you had nightly riots for 6 months and legalization of all drugs. So not good. Seattle's a pretty city, but it's just, you go to the downtown, there's just nobody there, and it's unfortunate. I mean, it really is.
Well, I used to be in favor of drug legalization. I did until we had these experiments with this, and now I'm just
learned our lesson.
100%, man. We learned our lesson, and hopefully we more criminalize even marijuana, because everyone's like, marijuana is just smoking weed. No, the marijuana today isn't the marijuana of the hippie stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just, hey, man, I appreciate Seattle and Portland taking the lead on this, and now we know no drug legalization. I thought, I'm in a small L libertarian conservative for many years. I said, yeah, man, just legal. Reason the guy. Who's the guy from Liberty? There's a couple guys on the Reason and National Review. Hell, National Review used to be anti-war on drugs, and it all sounds good in theory until we see it in place. It's sad, man. Seattle.
Well, it's unusual when you get a really clean policy experiment. We would debate about all sorts of different policy things, and it's really unusual to say, okay, let's just go do it.
Right.
And I live in Oregon, and we had a referendum say essentially legalize all drugs, and you we get to find out what happened. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people, if you let them do hard drugs all day, that's in fact what they're going to do. And it's not good for them. Obviously, it's not good for society or the economy. So, even Oregon is now backing off that, saying, well, we have to have some enforcement. So we can't just have people sitting on the sidewalks.
Wasn't there a referendum in Oregon that just, was it Oregon? Did Oregon just have a referendum that passed that was pretty, I don't want to say right wing, but certainly was that Washington? Maybe it was Washington. I can't remember. There's one of those two crazy states. They just passed a referendum. I was like, wow, I forgot what it was, man. I was like, oh, is it natural gas? Oh, speaking of which, I got my natural gas. I love Canadian oil and gas. And they passed a referendum in Washington not to ban fracking or not to ban, what's that? It's not to ban gas connections into new homes, essentially.
I think some of them, they wanted to ban gas stoves and stuff like that. And
and they
don't want that. So.
Even in Washington, they said, nah, that's crazy, man. So, all right, so you're in Seattle. I appreciate you jumping on. So everybody knows who you are. So I'm not going to go into the introduction here, but if you don't know who Andrew Biggs is and you're watching my channel, you're probably new to the channel, which is fine. I mean, we get people new. I got a thing in my eye.
I'm like James Bond or whatever. My reputation precedes me.
Well, the funny thing was, Alicia Munnell had written that article in Squared Away blog, I think, that the Center for Retirement Research, and is basically talking about you, and I want to go into that about how you shouldn't co-write an article with anyone other than her. And I said, wow, Alicia Munnell having a good joke. I thought that was pretty good. And so
Alicia approves of all my written work as long as she gets to edit it first. But when I kind of off-wrote it, that's when we get at cross purposes.
Yeah. Then she said, "How dare Andrew cheat on me with another lady you did." But I said that was pretty funny. So I connected to Andrew on X, everybody, and I'm not on Blue Sky. I probably should be because I'm such a far left wing guy for some reason. Some people think I'm far left. It's kind of funny, Andrew, but I'm not on Blue Sky because I like the ladies. I don't like the men, if you know what I'm saying. But so Andrew, I said, hey man, this is funny, and Andrew poked me back, and I said, well, if we can get on this live stream here, and he's at the drop of the hat, or not drop of the hat, but the last minute, I should say, Andrew's able to do that. So. I want to make sure if you guys got questions on Social Security for Andrew, make sure you put it in caps because I will save it here for a second. But so Andrew, why don't you talk about the what Alicia, if you recall, what she was referring to, and we'll go into that, and I got some other questions for you.
Sure,
we'll take questions here. So.
Well, I wrote a a paper recently with a lawyer named Kristen Shapiro, based in DC, and this kind of came out of conversations we had when I'm really a Social Security specialist, the policy and the economics of it. She's a lawyer and she understands sort of these constitutional kind of issues. And we were talking, and the problem we both saw in Social Security is that nobody's got any interest in fixing it. This was written before the election, but what we had was the common thread was neither Kamala Harris nor Donald Trump really gave even lip service to fixing Social Security. And we were getting closer and closer to the date when the Social Security trust fund will run out. And, whatever people think about the trust fund in terms of this economic importance, I don't think it really has very much there. It does have legal importance. Mm-hmm. And what the legal importance is that once the trust fund runs out, the government no longer has the authority to pay your full promise benefits. Everybody says Social Security is a self-financing system, earned benefits, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. But what that means is when the trust fund runs out, they can't just call on general revenues to pay your benefits. And so
unless they change the law is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, they have to change the law. Right. And so what Chris and I were asking was, okay, if the trust fund runs out and nothing else happens, Congress doesn't act, the president doesn't sign a bill or whatever, what can you do? And the common assumption, for 25 years has been that when the trust fund runs out, you had to have an across the board benefit cut. Mm. Meaning, if the way the Social Security actuaries project is in 2033, the retirement part of Social Security will be about 21% short of the revenues it needs to pay full benefits. So the assumption made by Social Security, made by the Congressional Budget Office, made by me in a paper I wrote literally 20 years ago is, well, you have a 21% benefit cut for everyone.
Across the board for everybody.
Across the board. Everybody, new retirees, old retirees, rich, poor, young, old, whatever. Everybody gets that same 21% cut, or, whatever the exact percentage turns out to be in that year. And in this paper I wrote when I was at Social Security, we use this sort of micro simulation model where you can get a really detailed look at the population. And back then, I estimated that if you cut benefits in that way, the elderly poverty rate would double. Even middle-class households would take a really big hit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I think the reaction from Congress at that point would probably be, well, let's just raise taxes to cover the entire shortfall. Let's borrow to cover the entire shortfall so that nobody gets any benefit cut. And, I'm a fiscal conservative. I think, sooner or later, we've got to scale back benefits because it's getting to be too expensive. In particular, we want to scale them back for high income retirees. And, just before anybody freaks out, I'm not saying, okay, tomorrow we're going to cut your benefit.
Right. But can you define what is a high income retiree? Like, what would you say, is the income you got $80,000 required minimum distribution, so you basically got a $1.5 million IRA. Would that be a high income?
Well, let me just give you 2 data points. Okay. And regarding the year 2033, if you hear any noise in the background, it's like a motorcycle driving by the hotel. The year 2032 is the last year in which the Social Security Trust Fund will be fully solvent for the year. It's also the first year in which a high-income couple can get a combined Social Security benefit of over $100,000 per year. Now, as a person who works in public policy, let me put it to you this way: that's insane. There's no reason at all why a safety net program, anti-poverty program, be paying people $100,000 a year. If we took that same high-income couple, let's say they lived north of the border in Canada, which, last I checked is a civilized country, they would get something like $31,000 a year from the Canada Pension Plan, which is their version of Social Security. So the point is, we got to start scaling this thing down. I mean, it's just, I don't want people going into poverty.
Right.
You need some supports, but we're really getting to the point where with Social Security for low-income people, these are people who are not going to save for retirement on their own. It's just the reality of it. There's, if you look at, the bottom fifth of the population, there are people who are very disconnected from the workforce. They're never getting offered 401k. They're practically in poverty. You need Social Security or they're going to be in poverty in old age. Yeah. But when you get to people to be honest, in the middle, and particularly when you're looking, towards the top of the income distribution, all you are doing at that point is saying, where you're substituting government provided retirement income, tax and transfer, you're substituting that for money they would have saved and earned on their own. And there's all sorts of evidence for that, which I can cite if you're interested.
No, 100%.
So you got to start scaling it back. But the problem is, if the trust fund runs out and people think, okay, your Congress is not adept at policy making, they'll just throw their hands up and say, let's just borrow all the money to pay everybody everything. That is fiscally irresponsible.
Right.
So what Kristen Shapiro is the lawyer I co-authored it with, her insight is that when that trust fund exhaustion happens, you don't in fact have to do an across the board benefit cut. And she has the Supreme Court precedents and all that. And when we start talking about it, she actually convinced me fairly quickly that the president, via the Social Security Commissioner, would have discretion at that point of how to use the limited resources available to them. There's been precedents in the past where Congress has made people eligible for government benefits, but not authorized enough money to pay for them all, which is exactly the circumstance you're facing with Social Security. And what the Supreme Court has said, and the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, has since sort of, echoed, is at that point, the executive branch has some discretion. It has to be a defensible plan. It has to have a clear public purpose, but they don't have to give everybody the same cut. So looking at that, I said, okay, well, what would something look like in that point? And what we said is Social Security could afford to pay. Well, essentially what we would do is we would freeze benefits at around what the median retiree is getting. In other words, take somebody who's at the 50th percentile, right in the middle of the distribution of benefits. Everybody below that will get the full promised benefit. Mm-hmm. Anybody above the 50th percentile, above the median, would simply get what the person at the 50th percentile is getting, which our estimates is around $2,100 per month. Okay. So you get whatever you're promised up to $2,100 a month. Anything over that, you get $2,100 a month. That by itself is enough to fix the funding gap. And the president would have the discretion to do that. Okay. And what that means is the point here is not that this should be the permanent long-term fix. Right. That's a baseline where currently people think that if you've got to do a 21% across the board cut overnight, that is going to mean that's the retirement crisis people talk about. Right. People being thrown into poverty. It's really a terrible outcome. And so Congress in response say, hey, we're going to raise taxes by $25 trillion or whatever it's going to be. Here we say, look, it's not a good outcome, but it is a manageable outcome in the sense of nobody's going to be thrown into poverty. If you have a two-income couple and they're both getting that maximum benefit of $2,100 per month, they're at 2.5 times the poverty threshold before they touch a penny of their own savings. So what we have is, not good, not the sustainable thing I want, but it avoids a crisis. Okay. And what you're going to have when you go into this trust fund insolvency situation is obviously you're going to have bargaining and negotiating between the left and the right, different houses of Congress. My view is, say the year before the trust fund runs out, whoever is president at the time can say, if the trust fund runs out, you guys don't come to a deal, this is in fact what's going to happen. Okay, yes, it's going to be big cuts for people at the top, but for people from the lowest up through the middle, there's going to be no cuts at all. Yeah. You guys go talk about what you're going to do. To my view, that focuses the policy discussion where the policy discussion should be focused, which is how much are we going to raise taxes, mostly on high income people, to pay higher Social Security benefits, mostly to high income people. That's the deal. Between Republicans and Democrats, neither of them are looking to have huge Social Security benefit cuts for poor people. Nobody wants to throw more seniors into poverty. The real question is, how big a system do we want to have for rich people? And
but see, the problem is rich. You define rich just by your max Social Security. So that's where I think my swords are crossing a little bit. I'm like, just because someone makes, I get what you're saying is Social Security is never supposed to be $100,000, but that in of itself isn't rich. I mean, relative to Social Security, sure, but I mean, that's not a rich. That's just not. You see what I'm
Well,
saying?
I guess here's a way to think about what rich means. Let's think about the median retiree household, meaning not the top, not even the average, but right in the middle.
Right.
The median retiree household today is the richest they've ever been in history. In the U.S. history, they're also, if you look at OECD data, they're also the richest retirees in the world. They're richer than retirees and than the median household in Switzerland or Sweden or Netherlands or whatever country people choose to idolize.
Andrew, I still find it amazing when I tell people that Mississippi has a higher per capita income than UK does. People say, no, it can't be, because we all think Mississippi is just freaking from 1922. Yeah. They're richer. This is a retiree. It's just the state of Mississippi is wealthier than UK. Anyway,
if you live in another country, I went to college in Ireland and then grad school in the UK. And look, those are not poor countries by any stretch of the imagination compared to the rest of the world. You do realize how rich Americans are. We're just a richer country.
God bless USA, man. Yeah,
but the point with this is, even if you're somebody in the middle, the issue is not how much money should you have in retirement, it's where should that money come from?
Yeah.
In the sense of, if I'm in the middle, say a two-earner couple, both middle income, retiring today will get somewhere, I'm pulling a number out of my head, I think it's about $66,000 from Social Security alone.
$5,000 a month, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so they're at 3 times the elderly poverty line before touching a penny of their own savings. How much more taxes do you want to pay to have that? And a couple of years ago, I did a survey question where I asked, or the people were asked, if you wanted to have more money in retirement, would you rather pay more into Social Security and get more from Social Security? Would you rather pay more into your savings account and get more from your savings account? Right. And literally, I think it was a 3-to-1 margin. And across almost every demographic breakdown, people preferred saving more on their own. Absolutely. That's all I'm saying is Social Security can afford to pay a certain amount given the current tax rates. If you want more than that, how do you want to get more than that? And I think framed in that way, most people say, look, I'm just going to save it on my own, because Congress has not exactly been a good steward of your Social Security money. They don't, this is a program we should have fixed literally 40 years ago. We didn't do it. So most people say, look, I'll trust myself. I'd rather, and this isn't like a rate of return kind of thing. Oh, I want to put all in the stock market.
Right.
It's just, you want the money where you can watch it.
Absolutely. 100%.
And so that's kind of how I see how this plays out. That as people get richer and society gets richer, we should rely more on our own savings, less on Social Security. Doesn't mean no safety net. It just means, looking through the income distribution today, we assume, okay, low income people need some help from the government. High income people don't. That's how every government program works. Over time, though, society as a whole is getting richer. And what that tells me, just both from a sort of an economics perspective, but also, I hate to say, from a political philosophy perspective, is we should be becoming less dependent on government.
Yeah.
If you're a rich person, and people in the future be richer than today, they can afford to save a little bit more on their own, hold back on raising taxes for Social Security. It's not, this is not like we want to shut the system down. I'd prefer to have a stronger safety net, but it's just setting the choices up in such a way that we don't have Congress just throwing its hands in the air and saying, okay, we would need an extra $350 billion a year in taxes. That's real money at a time when we've got a lot of other things to think about, like the debt and the deficit.
We got to fund these wars too, because don't forget, if we don't fund the wars, we'll be speaking Chinese. What was Alicia's pushback on all this, Andrew?
Okay, Alicia's pushback. We're referring to Alicia Munnell, who up until very recently was the director of the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College. She's a well-regarded economist, and I've done a fair amount of work with her. We get along very well, but it's just she's a little left of center, I'm a little right of center. And her argument was that by setting up this, saying the president has discretion on how to address the exhaustion of the Social Security Trust Fund, she's saying, well, first, that we're trying to make it out like it's not such a big deal. And that's not what we're saying. We're just saying we'd prefer this thing not be a total disaster. And, if you can avoid having a total disaster, let's avoid that. Yeah. Second, she claimed some disagreement on the legal end I'm not in our study. I'm not the primary author of the legal stuff, but I think we're on solid ground on that end. I think, in fact, the president does have the discretion. So if the president has discretion to avoid a disaster, let's avoid the disaster.
Right.
Let's have a more reasoned way of thinking about this thing. If you're somebody who is sort of left of center and prefer to fix Social Security entirely by raising taxes, having the trust fund involvement look like a total nuclear meltdown is probably helpful, because at that point, Congress will say, let's just raise taxes. We can't. The level of policy making sort of skill in Congress these days is so poor that you think, hey, they could adjust things. There's no reason Congress couldn't pass something exactly like what we've said the president can do. But their policy making ability on things like Social Security is terrible. So they'll just throw up their hands and raise taxes. And it's just, whether you're a liberal or conservative, $350 billion a year to pay higher Social Security benefits to people who are already the richest retirees on earth, it's just not the best use of your money. If you're conservative, you want to have low taxes, okay, then avoid that by not paying it. But even if you're a liberal, you say, okay, God is going to give me this once in a generation tax increase. Right. Do you want to use it to pay higher Social Security benefits to rich people rather than, they've got their whole laundry list of things they want to do. Right. Even if you're a progressive, you shouldn't favor this. But we're just, by ignoring the problem and letting it sneak up on us, that's when you end up with bad policy outcomes.
It seems like Alicia and those guys on the left are actually anti-401ks, and so they're more for the government's pensions anyway. So so your scheme here, and I don't say scheme in a negative way, derogatory. Your scheme to say, hey, we're going to basically put the burden back on wealthier people to start saving more for themselves, would be antithesis what the left wing wants to do, which is less of that, because they always talk about how bad we've talked about this before, how bad the 401k is, and it's just a silly thing. And so they wanted more on the government entity as a whole. So I think that at least should be, it's almost like school choice. The left doesn't want you to have vouchers or anything like that. They want to, the whole thing regulated for they don't even want you to be able to homeschool, frankly. And I imagine this is kind of the same thing. They want the government in charge, them have more power, and the individuals have less choice, essentially. I would think that. And I don't think she actually said that explicitly, but when you read these lefties on their writings, it's quite clear that they crave for the pension system of this bygone era before ERISA that was so great.
If you push somebody who's left of center on this, you say, look, I'm happy paying benefits for lower income people. I'd raise them to keep people out of poverty, but why do we need to be paying $100,000 a year to rich?
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
They give you this it's a political economy argument. And the argument is that if we don't, is basically Americans are kind of selfish. And if we don't pay high benefits to rich people, then rich people will not support paying high benefits to low income people. We have to be all packaged in together. Back when Social Security started, there's this idea that the program for the poor is a poor program. We don't want to have means tested.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
The problem is, we know, you said, where has the huge growth in government spending been, say, the past several decades? A program like Medicaid, which is explicitly means tested. Right. Americans broadly support that. We don't want people, poor people not to have health care, so we give them Medicaid. We didn't demand rich people be given Medicaid. Right. So this is a theory that in 1935 wasn't an implausible one, but we've had nearly 100 years of testing it. And look, if you go to Canada or the UK or Australia, their pension systems like Social Security are much, much more targeted on low income people, which means, rich people save more on their own, but it also means lower taxes on rich people. Those countries have not collapsed or anything like that. Look, we have evidence now on that, and we just don't need to be doing this. And, if money grew on trees, whatever, fine, but we really are, in fact, going to be in a situation where we've got to do something to get hold of the deficits and debt. We can't keep doing this. And if you've got this unsustainable deficit and debt, starting by not paying money to rich people who would otherwise save that money on their own. I mean, this is like the no-brainer of no-brainers. There's a lot of difficult decisions to be made on how to handle deficit and debt. This isn't one of them. This is an easy one. So it just strikes me something like this is a way to start thinking about this.
I have a dog sitting here trying to get some on my pocket. So if you're wondering why I keep looking down.
Well, before people freak out, I mean, it's,
Right.
we talk about what do you do if the trust fund, in fact, runs out, where you have to do something overnight. That is not my preference. My preference is to start today and phase these things over time. So people are always like, you want to cut my benefit in half.
Right. No, I got
That's
it. Right.
not what I'm talking about.
Right.
But it's just saying over time, what do we want to do with benefits? I mean, I wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal maybe a year ago, and I said, let's look at the maximum benefit people can get and just cap it and say, look, that's enough. This year's $96,000 for a couple. I said, look, there's no reason any safety net program should be paying people anything more than that. So just stop digging the hole deeper, basically.
So when you did you ever look at anything like changing AWI to just a COLA? Instead of average wage indexing, just using a simple COLA, CPIE or something, not CPIE in this regard, but instead of indexing the wages increases, because AWI has been significantly higher than COLA, it's just reducing the wage index. Have you ever done any research on that?
Yes. The AWI, this is the average wage index, and it's more or less the growth of average wages in the workforce. And the importance of that figure is that benefits after you retire are adjusted by inflation. You have the COLA that's based on the CPI. And we have the arguments of what's the best CPI to use, but it's basically trying to get at inflation. Yeah. But the issue with average wage index is how do benefits grow for like the initial benefits you get, meaning a new retiree next year versus a new retiree this year. That's where the average wage index comes in. And that's usually 1.2 percentage points higher than inflation. So the average new retiree next year is going to get a benefit is 1% or so higher than what somebody got this year. Social Security didn't always have that. This came in 1977 when they were doing some fixes to the benefit formula, and there's an expert panel of like Peter Diamond who went out and get a Nobel Prize. He's smart guys. And they're like, don't do this. If you start with a wage indexing the initial benefits people get, at that point, you could tell that the system was financially unsustainable. They said, don't do it. Do less than that. And then if in the future you have some extra money, then you can use your discretion. Congress with Jimmy Carter said, no, let's just do this literally unsustainable benefit increase. And so they knew it was going to bankrupt the system. It was just the demographics then would tell you what was going to happen. But what you get is if you look at the average benefit received by a new retiree today compared to, say, somebody retiring in the year 2000, the average benefit for somebody retiring today would be, I'm guessing, more than 40% higher than somebody got in 2000, even after inflation. So this is not just inflation pushing up the nominal amount. This is over and above inflation. And so again, you say, if money grew on trees, fine, go do it, but it doesn't. And, the 12.4% tax is all for Social Security is already the highest tax most people pay. If you want to keep increasing benefits, then you got to raise that tax higher. Again, people have got other things to do with their money. So, but yeah, I worked on a commission. This was 2001 that President Bush had. And one of the main things they talked about is switching from that, they call wage indexing, where initial benefits rise with wages, to what you call price indexing, which again, this is not COLAs. This is how do we calculate the initial benefit you get when you retire? If you did that, it would fix most of the financing gap. I think there are better ways to do it now. I really would try to increase or improve the safety net on the bottom end. And for rich people, I'd cut their benefits by more than that. Yeah. But something like that would essentially get you where you need to go.
That's interesting. So that's a great observation that the guy who retired, all things being equal, the guy who retired in 2000 is getting 40% less than the guy retired in 2024, just because AWI is so much higher than cost of living adjustments that we use. So That's and that definitely wasn't intended by any stretch of the imagination in 1935. You know what I'm saying?
And they knew, from 1935 up to 1977, benefit increases were discretionary. And Congress would raise benefits sort of as needed and as affordable. And they raised benefits, I think, 9 times during that period. The system didn't go broke. And but the reason it didn't is because, they took affordability into account. If we kept that, we would have continued raising benefits, but just at a lower pace. And the system would still be solvent today. So it was locking this rate of benefit increase that just I wrote a piece maybe 6 or 8 months ago with a guy named John Cogan, who's at the Hoover Institution at Stanford. And I think the title of the piece was, this was the date when the Social Security crisis became inevitable. It was December something, 1977. As soon as they signed that rate of benefit increases into law, it switched from Congress being able to increase your benefits in a discretionary way as affordable to Congress having to rein in and cut your benefits. And once you have this baseline of benefit increases and Congress has to cut them politically, it's really, really hard. And that's why it took 40 years without fixing the system.
Well, the crazy thing is there's no political gain to have done that to begin with, because the average wage index, it takes, years and years and years of that compounding. So it's like, why? It's weird that they did that, because cutting benefits is never going to happen from a congressional. They'll have to put a blue ribbon commission and, all these guys from the bipartisan policy center, blah, blah, blah. They're going to come down, then the ARP is going to get pissed off and all. It's just like, but that was never, I was 7 years old in 1977, so I wasn't paying attention. But what I'm just saying is, like, there wasn't this big, we have to get, for Josh, who retires in 2000 in 1977, a much higher benefit than someone who retired in 19. It's just weird to me how that.
What they're doing is they're pre-committing, future Congresses to pay benefits that were dramatically higher than what retirees at the time were getting, were dramatically higher than the tax rates could afford to pay. It was just a remarkably foolish thing to do.
100%. And I'm sure the lobbying power of the retiree unions and all this stuff was through the roof. They said, because they knew if we get them locked in, they'll never be cut. Just like LBJ, with his whole thing with if he gets a certain amount of welfare, it'll never be cut. You know what I'm saying? It's what they do, man. They draw you in and you can't leave. So you don't think changing AWI to something else, you don't think that's feasible necessarily? Or is that too not politically policy motivated that no one's going to go with it?
I think the reason some of the Bush people proposed it back in 2001. The reason I think it's not really feasible is it's an across the board cut. You'd be cutting benefits by the same percentage for rich people and for poor people. And this gets at, and I understand the people want a nice clean way of doing it, but look, we've got Social Security for a reason. Most people do support the idea of a safety net for low income people. Simply getting rid of wage indexing with a price indexing, sure, it cuts benefits a lot for rich people, and that helps in the solvency. It also cuts benefits a lot for poor people. And so you will have higher numbers of seniors in poverty.
That's a good point.
This is not let me just give you a little math example. Imagine, say right now, the elderly poverty rate, they claim it to be probably 9%, something like that. It's in reality, it's lower, but they claim to be about 9%. We could give every retiree a poverty level benefit and take poverty to zero among seniors for half the cost of what Social Security currently pays out. And the reason it's half the cost is so many people under Social Security are getting benefits that vastly exceed the poverty rate. And I'm not insulting these people. Nobody's cheating the system. They're just getting the benefits the formula implies. But when you hear about Social Security and Social Security reform, there's always this focus on the safety net and poverty and poor seniors. That's an easy problem to solve. The tougher problem to solve is we keep giving more and more money to the richest retirees on earth, and we seemingly can't stop ourselves from doing it.
Because people pay into it. That's their money. It kind of like, what I'm saying? They're like, frankly, for me, I'm going to be heavily relying on Social Security because I've been paying, I'm self-employed, so I'm paying 12.4. I'm like, they cut my benefit. It's going to piss me off. And so you're like, all right, Congressman, Rich McCormick, you better not cut my benefit. And he'll say, okay, you can't do that. And then
Yeah.
on the other hand, you know what I'm saying? So that's
Part of the problem is that people have this, perception. Okay, it's an earned benefit. It's not welfare. I get it because I pay money in, and that's fine. I understand that.
understood. Yeah.
But here's your problem. If you look at numbers from the Congressional Budget Office, and let's say you go to the 2033 or so when Social Security's trust fund will run out, somebody retiring in that year, according to the CBO, is promised something like 25% more in lifetime benefits than they paid in taxes plus interest on those taxes. So in other words, people say, oh, I paid for my benefits. Well, you paid for 75% of your benefits. The other 25% you didn't pay for. And, it's everyone's like, well, I paid for my benefits. Well, look, if you paid for your benefits, the system wouldn't be going broke. We are still promising people more in Social Security benefits than they paid in taxes. And if you look to Medicare, it's dramatically worse.
Yeah,
this is, we're not running a perpetual motion machine here. At some point, somebody's got to pay the bills. And so it's, I don't want to pull the rug out from under people in the sense of, okay, here's what right. People are currently retired and they rely on it. I also don't want to, eviscerate the safety net, people who are really going to need the system. But, if we can't scale back the growth of benefits for high income retirees, we must well pack it in, because that's about the least complicated public policy problem we face today. Everything else of, why is infrastructure expensive to make? Why are our schools not very good? How do we fix healthcare? Right. All those are infinitely more complex problems than this. So if we can't fix this, we got some real problems.
I think what you're missing, though, Andrew, is a guy. I think this is where you're missing, in my opinion, and it's just my critique on this. Let's just go back to $96,000 a year example. If that's all those people have, you see what I'm saying? They might be rich from a Social Security perspective, but let's say they don't have $2 million in an IRA or something like that. So maybe they were relying, unfortunately they did that, but maybe they just said, look, we're self-employed, we're carpet cleaning. We run a carpet cleaning business. So we're always at the 160, but we're paying 12.4 in, and we're going to get, husband and wife benefits or whatever at $96,000 a year, because we were relying on that. And that, to them, and to me, Frank, it doesn't seem like they're rich when we got guys over here with a $5 million IRA or something like that, and they're going to have massive required minimum distributions on top of that $96,000 wealthy. You see what I'm saying? It's like, there's got to be a way, in my opinion, to have a distinction between the people who are saying, I got $5 million, I got lucky in the hedge fund that I run, versus a guy who just ran a business and he paid 12.4%. And that's just the way I kind of look at it. Yeah. So go ahead.
If you had to make a big benefit change overnight, let's say the trust fund runs out and you got no choice, then, you could do a means tested benefit cut, right. Based on the previous year's tax returns, which would get at the problem that you're talking about. But when we go forward, if we're saying not what happens overnight, what happens 10, 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah, well, that's different. Yeah,
honestly, call me a hard-hearted conservative. I don't have much problem with saying to people, look, if you're a two-income couple who both made the taxable maximum each year throughout your career, so you're a couple who's making $320 a year for at least 35 years, you got some responsibility to save for yourself. If you didn't save for retirement on your own, it's kind of not my problem. Yeah. And at some point, I think it's society's problem if somebody who's making 10 grand a year can't take care of themselves. That's that's fine. But it's at some point you say, look, you're an adult, you're making good money, you got to save for retirement. And so it's this comes down to how quickly you make these changes.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah.
I just don't think it's too much to ask.
I don't think you're advocating
are not the government's problem.
And you're not saying, all right, tomorrow, starting 2033, you're fine up until 2032, December 31st, and then 1 January 2033, it kind of sucks to be you. Yeah. No, I think what you're saying makes sense. It's just got to be gradual, where you say we're going to phase this in, where you're saying, or we're telling you, if you're a decent income maker, you better take more responsibility. I got no qualm with that at all, but it just can't be like, here's this fine line. We're on the precipice, and that stinks for you, man.
Congress have been responsible. I mean, we've known for 40 years that Social Security faced this long-term deficit. Right. This didn't sneak up on us. We had known I joke, if you read the New York Times from like 1990 and they describe what's happening with Social Security, you'd be entirely up to date on, there's no secret here. And so if Congress had acted responsibly then, this would be a simple problem to solve. Just change the rate of growth of benefits by some small percent, and then you're fine.
Right.
What we have gotten, I mean, if you think back to a couple of years ago, all these riots in France because they had to raise the retirement age, and everybody would joke, "Oh, it's the French." But what was going on was they had to raise the retirement age by something like 2 years.
That's what it was. 2 years, exactly.
Yeah, 2 years
like
over a very quick period. And the difference is French retirees or French households have almost no retirement savings outside of Social Security.
Right.
American retirees have massive amounts of retirement savings. But still, if you can phase this in slowly, then you're set. The problem with the political incentives is Congress is like, well, why should I take this hit today so that we don't have this disaster in the future? Or I can just leave it to somebody else, and then you get the disaster in the future. I mean, I hate to say, this is why you don't want the government managing all your retirement money, because their incentives are different than your incentives. And they're thinking about themselves. They're not necessarily thinking of you. They'll tell you they're thinking of you, but they're really thinking about themselves.
That's the thing. The minute you say, I'm going to do this, they're going to say, look, oh, can you believe Congressman Scanlon said he wants a tax cut or raise taxes on Social Security? He wants to cut your Social Security. It's like Paul Ryan. We're going to push the old lady off the thing for Medicare. And it's like, Democrats are evil at this stuff, but Republicans aren't stupid. They'll do the same thing if Democrats. What I'm saying? Oh, they're going to cut your Social Security. And it's like, and yet
there's always the incentive to kick the can down.
Absolutely, but that's their own damn fault, man. It's their own fault as taxpayers or as a voter. So then my other question is, what's wrong with just saying, okay, we're going to have congressional action to say in 2032, we're going to have to do this once and for all. We can't just, because if they cut benefits I don't think people realize what would happen to the economy if benefits were just cut 21% across the board on 1 January 2033. We'd go in, personal consumption expenditures, 70% of GDP. You took away 20% of that. The whole thing's falling apart. It's not going to happen. So what's wrong with
just budget somehow? But our point was we want to have a starting point, which is not a doubling of the elderly poverty rate. And this will depend on, what sort of president you have in office at that point. But let's say it's a Republican president, and they want to go into these inevitable negotiations over Social Security from a fairly strong point. If your starting point is zero increase in poverty, in elderly poverty, and we're not going to cap the benefits up until the point where you've got people who got combined benefits that are 3.5 times the poverty line. That's a pretty good starting point for negotiating with the Democrats, who will simply want to raise taxes on everybody for everything.
Right, exactly.
So it's thinking of how this process plays out. And so starting from that, I think is a healthier, more productive way than starting from the idea of, well, we got to prevent this complete meltdown of retirement security and the economy.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question about the poverty stuff, though, because, a lot of the transfer payments aren't even considered in, 1040s and whatnot. So do you think, because I know first of all, 9% of seniors being in poverty when they're not even looking at transfer payments, heating assistance, all this stuff, Medicaid, that seems we're crushing, we kick everybody's ass. There's no other way around that. I would even challenge, like you said before, if even 9% is a thing. It just seems to me, though, this whole idea that we have all these seniors like freaking eating cat food is just so stupid. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. So,
the familiar argument is the one you just made, that, okay, the poverty, essentially when we measure your income for poverty purposes, there's certain things that are not counted, heating assistance or whatever. And that does have some effect. For retirees, there's a bigger issue, which is, if you are withdrawing money from an IRA or a 401k, essentially a retirement account, that money is not counted as part of your income for calculating poverty purposes. And it's almost unbelievable to think of it. If you look at how the Census Bureau, which measures poverty, defines what they call money income, it is regular payments. So Social Security, your traditional pension, that's income. if you something like as needed withdrawals from IRA or 401k is not counted as income for the purposes of calculating poverty, which is again insane. It makes no sense at all. And you can look, if you look in census data, they'll say how much income do people get from IRAs? And then you can go to the IRS and they'll say, okay, how much income do people get from IRAs? The IRS doesn't care how you withdraw it. They just want their money. Exactly. And what the census data shows, virtually none of the money withdrawn from retirement accounts is being counted as income. I made this point in a Wall Street Journal piece 2012, maybe, and people were poo-pooing it all, blah, 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 you're wrong or whatever. Since then, census they'll take their survey data of people on which they base the poverty measure, and they matched it to people's tax returns. And for the median household, their total income using the tax returns was something like 29% higher than the census's figure. But the poverty rate went from like 9.7% to maybe 6%, something like that. A dramatic reduction just from correcting that. And then, of course, on top of that, at the point you made about what's being counted, there's an alternate way of measuring poverty, what they call consumption poverty. They don't look at your income. They look at how much you spend, because we have data on that. And I think the share of households who spend less than the federal poverty threshold is like 2% or something.
That's crazy.
Because when I say living in poverty, we interpret it as your income. But if we're thinking about your living conditions, we actually want to know what you're spending. And so it's probably around 2% who are living below poverty. That's my best guess.
No, I actually talk about being poor on paper, i.e. you're 1040, you know what I'm saying? Because if you're poor on paper, well, you get to qualify for free Obamacare because it's free. It just falls from the sky, Andrew. Don't you know? It's just like no one has to pay for Obamacare. It's just, Medicare for all. That stuff's free. It just falls. But anyway, that's the whole thing. I'm just sitting there thinking, we're talking about these people who are impoverished, and relatively speaking, a lot of them aren't even impoverished when we actually take what your consumption is. And I didn't realize we had a consumption poverty thing measurement. That's pretty interesting, because that's what should be looking as you're not in poverty if you're eating not chicken wings, if you're eating freaking crab legs every day. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're not showing it as a 1040. All right, so I got. I don't want you to be here all night, Andrew. We have a couple. We got a bunch of comments, but I just want to kind of highlight.
Sure, I'm happy to talk.
Say again.
I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, yeah, right on. So, what is Pulverizer says? What does raising the retirement age to 70 do?
Here's the interesting thing on raising the retirement age, and is that on the one hand, it's seen as, say you want to raise your retirement age to 70. People say, oh, that's extreme. You can't possibly do that. At the same time, you'll people saying, oh, Social Security, the funding deficit really is not that big. It's a manageable problem or whatever. And you'll often have the same people saying both things. If you raise the retirement age to 70, that would fix roughly under 30% of the funding gap.
That's it.
I know raising it to 69 fixes like 18%. So, call it 27% of the long-term funding gap. So you've got this policy which people think is so extreme that it can't even be considered. I'm like, yeah, but it fixes, about a quarter of the gap. You can. I don't think it's a great idea in the sense that, again, raising the retirement age is just an across-the-board benefit for everyone. Yeah. For each year you raise the retirement age, your benefits at whatever year you claim are cut by around 6.7%. Yeah. So if we raise it from 67 to 68, it just means whenever you claim benefits, you're getting 6.7% less. My philosophy is we need to think about this in sort of distributional terms of we want to have a strong safety net for poor people. And so I don't think we need to cut benefits for the very poor, but we need a much lower benefits at the top. Sort of an across the board cut like that doesn't do it. There's a second problem when you raise the retirement age, that if you claim disability, you get your benefit calculated as if you had claimed the normal retirement age, which means, let's say you got somebody's age 62, their retirement benefit would, if you had a retirement age of 70, The retirement benefit, oh, good grief, would probably be 60% lower than they would get if they claimed disability. So any fool is just going to roll the dice at age 62 on claiming disability, because if you don't get it, okay, you can get your lower retirement benefit or claim later. If you do get it, you're sitting pretty. So you'd have a huge increase in disability applications. So you got the two issues going on there. And I won't be at all surprised if the retirement age is increased again, because it's, again, Congress doesn't have a good grasp of policymaking. They're not thinking of things in very subtle terms, despite the fact these are the guys who should be thinking about things in subtle terms. And so they'll say, well, we don't know what to do. Let's just raise the retirement age. So it's not the best policy, but I won't be surprised if it happens, because Congress hasn't grappled very much with what you want the system to do and how are different people being treated. Their level of understanding of the program is really very, very poor.
Oh, yeah.
It's just kind of unfortunate because it's the federal government's largest program, but they really don't understand the issues at all. I mean, I hate to put it in such blunt terms, but 20 years ago when George W. Bush was doing Social Security reform, at that point you had a very high level of education among members of Congress because they were forced to confront the issue and they understood the system pretty well. Now, even members who you think would have understood the program don't. I mean, you have, like, just to comment on something I saw yesterday, Representative John Larson, who was the chairman of the Social Security subcommittee. He's the lead Democrat. He's the ranking member there. And he puts on Twitter, we have not increased Social Security benefits in 40 years.
Right.
I'm like, just look at the data. And the people claiming today are getting 40% higher benefits than just 20 years ago, much less what they were getting 40 years ago. This isn't hard to figure out, but nobody's really looking at the data. So they've got these talking points. They read off 3x5 cards, but somebody's got to start digging into this.
Whether if you haven't, I mean, just come on, John Larson, what are you doing, man? Come on, stop with the freaking political. It has been increased, John Larson. How can you freaking possibly? That's the stuff that drives you up the wall. We
haven't raised benefits. How come the system's going broke? We're not running out of money by not increasing benefits 40 years. Come on. I mean, if you are not increasing benefits, there is this demographic issue of more retirees, fewer workers, and I get that. But if we were not increasing benefits in real terms year over year, we could survive that demographic push. People think it's all demographics, but after you decide we're to keep increasing benefits every year, you say, oh, well, the leftovers all demographics. I mean, well, I guess, but it was their decision to keep increasing benefits because that's what they wanted to do.
Well, I just say, how's the most educated guy on Social Security in the House of Representatives not know what AWI is, AWI compared to just regular cost of living? I mean, just come on, man. The idea that we haven't increased benefits is so freaking stupid.
It's just depressing. You would like to see, and he's the head of the Social Security subcommittee. Right. So this is the small group of Democrats and Republicans among all in Congress who should know the most about the system. And I haven't done testimony in that committee for a couple of years, but the last several times I've done it, you just come out shaking your head like this is sort of depressing. But this is, it really is. It's a massive program from a fiscal perspective. It's the biggest federal program. It's also really important to people at the individual levels. The biggest tax they pay is the biggest source of income for most retirees. You'd think people would say, okay, let's really educate ourselves on how this program works because we're the decision makers. But the level of knowledge of the program is very, very poor.
Well, I thought it was funny with John Larson. He did not vote for the Social Security Fairness Act, which you don't like. And we don't have enough time to get into that. He didn't vote for it. And I know he didn't vote for it because his name wasn't on the bill. I don't know that for a fact, but this is how petty these people are. And I don't know John Larson. He doesn't know me. That's fine. But just like, you're so petty, Social Security Fairness Act, getting rid of the weapon GPO. You think John Larson would be on that like stink on poop, but he wasn't because
I'm surprised because Connecticut school teachers, I don't think participate in Social Security. So I think the WEP GPO would be a factor. I'm kind of surprised that he didn't vote for that. I think he did. I think he supports repeal. I don't I
He
think.
supports repeal, but he wants with all the other stuff too. At least
Oh,
he put out a press release that he will not support the act because he didn't have all this other stupid stuff that he wanted to go with it. And I said, man, all right. So we got my man Cute Humor says, Andrew, do you think the Republican wins in the White House, Senate, and House will fix Social Security because Republican control the whole thing?
No, I don't think it will. To do this, I think to do it at any time, but particularly now, you need presidential leadership. I think the role of the president on something like Social Security or Medicare, or all these big issues, has to be to push these two sides together and get them to act on it. President Trump's position on Social Security is he says, I'm not going to cut benefits for anybody at any time. He hasn't talked about how he's going to pay for the benefits, which is kind of the important part. But I think the issue is that Social Security's insolvency, the trust fund running out, projected for 2033, that happens after he leaves office. And to be frank, I just don't think he's that concerned about it. So unless he pushes them to do it, I doubt they will. I mean, I have met with members of Congress, on the Hill, and they have a lot more enthusiasm for the idea of a fiscal commission to look at Social Security and Medicare. Because I think both sides know, look, some changes have got to happen. And they both have promises they need to get out of. The Republicans have said, we're never going to raise your taxes. You talk to them, behind the scenes, they'll say, yeah, we got to raise taxes. Democrats say, okay, we're never, ever going to cut your benefits. But think of something like John Larson's Social Security 2100 Act, which would fix Social Security entirely by raising taxes. He had 90% of House Democrats co-sponsoring that bill. It never got out of subcommittee. It never got a vote in committee, never came to the floor, even in the first 2 years of the Biden administration, when they had the House, the Senate, the president. So why did that not happen? Because they know that ultimately an all tax increase solution is going to be unpopular. They don't want to do it. Yeah. But they promised these things. The fiscal commission is a way, I hate to say breaking your promises, right, but they need a way of getting out of some of these pledges they've made, which are really unsustainable.
Yeah, blue ribbon commissions. It wasn't my fault. It was those guys over there. And yet, right. So
ideally, you wouldn't have this. Ideally, Congress would fix these programs in a timely fashion after due consideration. But 40 years on, we know that's not going to happen. It just shows the problems of policymaking, that this is the biggest program that Congress runs, and they can't fix it using the regular process. They have to outsource it. It's unfortunate, but I think that's the best chance we have for reform right now.
I wonder if actually gerrymandering, because it's so extreme now, gerrymandering, I wonder if that's hurt for Republicans and Democrats, not just with Social Security, but just generally speaking, to get together on stuff and just say, let's fix this common problem. Because, the Senate is...
My answer, yes.
Yeah, 100%.
The reason is that, and the House is the main issue, is that you have most of these House seats are safe seats, meaning if it's a Republican seat, the Republican is always going to win. If it's a Democrat seat, the Democrat's always going to win. Then you say, okay, given that, what is a member of one of those districts worrying about? All they're worrying about is getting primaried.
Right.
And because the primary is where they could lose their seat. And primary voters, Republican or Democrat, are much more extreme in their views than general election voters. So the way you avoid being primaried is by playing to the base. And so if you're a Democrat, you go further to the left. If you're a Republican, you go further to the right. So you have members who are more extreme in their views. But the gerrymandering also means with fewer swing districts, you have fewer moderate members. If you're a district which is sort of 51-49 Republican versus Democrat, a Republican could win that by being a moderate Republican, or a moderate Democrat could win it. But when these districts are 75-25 in either direction, moderates don't win those seats. Far left or far right does. There really are very few moderates left.
Don't forget, that's how Eric Cantor lost. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he lost, and that was and then AOC, that's how she won. She primary being further left than her left-wing opponent, who was an incumbent, and Eric Cantor was like the number 3 ranking guy in the House Republicans, and he lost by being Dave Bratt, outright winged him. And so you're like, I can't if the primary comes, I get primary. I'm screwed if I look like I'm partnering with AOC. I can't do that.
Sure. And I mean, Nancy Pelosi raised this issue of AOC specifically when AOC is pushing. When Nancy Pelosi is the voice of moderation, it tells you something. When I first started working the Hill, she was seen as a very liberal Democrat, but she's more establishment in the middle. And I forget she said something like a glass of water could get elected in AOC's district as long as it had a D in its name.
Right.
Meaning that, the concerns that somebody like AOC has, or some conservative Republican in a very safe district, are entirely different from what it takes to pass legislation. Absolutely. They're just not thinking, it doesn't mean they're dumb, but they're just not in this sort of environment of how things actually get passed.
Yeah. Which is why there's going to be a blue ribbon commission for all this stuff, because they literally can't. They just got to. All right, so we got my man Paul says, and I think Andrew's thinking about this, Paul, but he says it'll take time to condition people to save the way they should, which is why any major change or benefit reduction has to be phased in over time. Yeah, I think Andrew would agree to that. Like, you're not just going to say, like I said, wake up one day and say, "Sucks to be you. We're going to, cut your benefit to your PIA down to $2,100, even though before it's $3,800." But
I think I'll disagree a little bit, just to give you an interesting fact, though. I mean, I think ideally you want to phase in benefit changes or tax increases or whatever you're going to do. If something like the retirement age increase from 65 to 67 was passed in 1983, it was not fully implemented until last year. So you got 40 years to adjust. But here's an interesting example of, how would people react if you had a sudden reduction in benefits? And you actually had.
Sorry, keep talking.
I'll keep talking. Yeah, I referenced the changes Social Security made in 1977, and they happened because in 1972, Congress passed changes to the Social Security Act to the benefit formula to protect against inflation. But they made a mistake in that, and they called double indexed for inflation. So benefits for new retirees were rising rapidly, or going way, way, way up. And they said, okay, we've got to fix this. So in 1977, they passed this new benefit formula, which itself had its problems, but it fixed that double indexing issue. Now, when Congress passed that law in 77, they said, okay, they corrected this double indexing, but they said, if you receive these higher benefits accidentally, we're going to let you keep them.
Oh, man.
So what that produced was, in a very short period of time, a significant difference in benefits received by retirees who were born only a few years apart.
Right.
I guess it was about a 7% difference in benefits. So then you had a really nice natural experiment of how will people react to benefit cuts. And some researchers from the Social Security Administration, using Social Security data, right, they look at these people's earning records. They found that the people who received the benefit cuts made up for north of 61% of the benefit cuts by working more, working longer. And these were people who were actually very close to retirement at the time the benefit cuts happened. And what they also had, lower income people didn't tend to react that much, but higher income people reacted even more, probably, I'm guessing, close to dollar for dollar. So it's, I'm not saying we should do sudden cuts to benefits, but you shouldn't underestimate the ability and willingness of people to respond to those things.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And one of the interesting takeaways from this, when people think, well, should we fix Social Security with tax increases or benefit cuts, is that when these people's benefits were cut and they earned more to make up for it, they also paid taxes on those increased earnings. So for each dollar which they earned, like 10, 15%, or whatever the tax rate at the time was, that went to the government. What that means is that cutting benefits is, you can sort of fix a dollar of Social Security's funding gap with less than $1 of benefit cuts, because people are going to work more and you're going to get more revenues. If you look at the idea of raising taxes, I recently looked at, eliminating what we call the tax max. Right now, you pay taxes on first $168,000 in earnings. Most progressives want to get rid of that cap. Right. So you'll pay the 12.4% tax above that. If you do that, even left-leaning economists say, okay, well, people are going to work somewhat less because of that.
Right.
And if you do that, you're not just collecting lower Social Security taxes than you thought. You're also collecting lower federal income taxes, lower Medicare taxes, lower state income taxes. Even using pretty mild assumptions for how people react to that, you lose 20% of the net revenue gain. What that means is to get $1 of additional revenues for Social Security, you have to raise taxes by more than $1. In a sense, by more than what the dynamic figures would tell you. So the way I calculated fixing Social Security, I mean, they have this $25 trillion funding gap. Fixing that with tax increases would be at least a third more expensive than fixing it with benefit reductions, because benefit reductions, people will work more in response and pay more taxes. Tax increases, people work less in response, less taxes. So it's not just hey, we have a $25 trillion gap and we have to fix it with tax increases or benefit cuts. The amounts you got to do are not the same. So again, it points you to think how you want to do this thing.
Sounds almost like the reverse Laffer curve. You raise taxes, you get less revenue for the taxes. Exactly. That's
and there's certain assumptions under which if you eliminate the taxable maximum for Social Security, you don't get any net revenues. So you can get to that point, but even left-leaning economists say, look, it's going to be the reduction is big enough to matter.
I just did a video the other day. I said, if you lift the max, now you got people, unless they completely reduce unless we get like a fourth bend point at, like 5% or something like that, you're going to have people getting $175,000 a year in Social Security. If you get, it's just, that's just the way, unless they say, or they say after a certain amount of income, you're not getting any Social Security. And you're like, well, in that case,
think what they would do now, it used to be some people said, okay, if we've got to pay the $175 a year, we'll do it.
Right.
But at this point, Social Security's financing has gotten so bad that most of the proposals, they have sort of a fig leaf. You get like 2% back or something. Yeah. But really what they're doing is just hitting you with the additional tax. The problem there is, you're raising the top tax rate by 12 percentage points because employers are going to pay the extra, but we know how that's going to happen. They're going to reduce your wages to do it. So the wage base shrinks by that 6.2% they pay.
And you're going to have less people, because a lot of these people like me, we make more than the max. We're not making $1 million a year, but you're self-employed, or if a small business owner is making $150,000, $200,000 a year, which is good money. You increase that tax base for the extra $50,000, $60,000 by 12.4%, though. You know what I'm saying? That's a huge effective tax hike. And you're like, that was money I was going to use to hire somebody, to give somebody a bonus, all that stuff. You're like, no, I'm not going to. I don't think people recognize how damaging raising the cap would be. I'm always amazed how people just throw that out. Just raise the cap, we'll fix Social Security. I said, man, you're not a deep thinker, because
people say, well, that's the simple solution. Why wouldn't you do it? The interesting thing is, most other countries have Social Security programs like us. Nearly all of them have a capped payroll tax like us. But unlike us, for most cases, the cap is lower. If people act as if it's common sense that, hey, just eliminate the cap, why wouldn't you do it? Well, no other country does this. If you're in Canada, the payroll tax stops somewhere around 70,000. I think in the UK it's about 75,000. There are countries that have much higher caps or no cap at all, some Scandinavian countries. But the way it works there, their Social Security programs are not progressive. Nobody runs a progressive Social Security program with uncapped payroll tax. So you just look around the world and there's a reason why Sweden doesn't do this, because even they have realized that these massive tax rates on high income people are counterproductive.
Absolutely.
But again, even if you're progressive and say, okay, we're going to get a 12 percentage point increase in the top marginal tax rate, use that for something that progressives want. Progressives don't particularly care about paying high benefits to high income retirees. That's not top of mind for them. If they eliminate the cap to do that, that's money they can't use for Medicare for all, all these other laundry list of things.
They can't buy votes with that money. Right. Exactly.
And I've talked to progressive analysts. They're like, we get this. They understand that they have promises they all want expensive new things, but they're all claiming the same money to get those expensive new things. And so this is sort of a within the family thing that they've got to sort out. Okay, if you happen to get, if you fix Social Security entirely through taxes, that would be the largest peacetime tax increase in U.S. history. Now, if you're not going to get it. I just realistically, they're not going to get it. But if they did get it, if I were a Democrat, I'd say, well, why use it for this?
Right. What I'm saying.
These are the richest retirees in the world. They're okay. Leave them. And then, whatever else they want to use the money on, they can fight among themselves. So the fact that they haven't come to this discussion yet shows that I don't think they are particularly serious yet. It's like, my joke on global warming is I'll think we're serious about fighting global warming when we start making 1 million nuclear plants.
Right, exactly. What I'm saying.
And the fact that we're not shows we're not serious yet. And we're getting more serious. But it's, I'll think Democrats are serious about all these promises they're making when they start saying, okay, we can't keep all the promises. Let's think about how we prioritize them. But it's still in the promise phase, not the realistic kind of policy making or budget making phase.
My man Sean says, Andrew, are there people getting Social Security other than spouses who never actually paid into it?
Other than spouses. Basically, no.
I wouldn't think so.
Because people think about, there's the idea, well, we've got illegal immigrants.
Exactly.
There may be, it used to be possible if you were illegal to get benefits if you moved back to the country you came from, but there are very few. I could find the numbers now, how many you get, but not very many. But these days with Social Security, your benefits are based on your earnings that were taxed by Social Security.
Yeah, what I'm saying.
So, spouses, there's a spousal benefit that somebody can get, but other than that, some kids would get benefits without paying in. But for this idea that Social Security is running short of money because we're paying benefits to people who didn't pay in, if you're thinking undocumented immigrants, by and large, they are good for Social Security because most people think they're getting paid underneath the table, just cash. And obviously you do get that. Right. But a lot are just using fake Social Security numbers. And the employer knows it's fake, but the taxes are paid anyway. But you're not going to go in and claim benefits on a fake Social Security number. So it's not a massive amount, but it's a number in the billions now of taxes been paid by undocumented workers who are not able to collect on them. Now, as I've told people many contexts, don't make your decisions on immigration based on what it does for Social Security, because the effects are just not huge either way. But people shouldn't, and I'll say I saw, then Senator Vance, saying, okay, well, the problem is we've got undocumented immigrants. Like, that's not the problem. The problem is we're paying a lot of money to rich people. That's the problem. And so people need to just grapple with it. He's not a dumb guy, but part of it is it's not simply understanding how the program works in general terms. Okay, we pay money in, money going out, demographics, population aging, all that. But it's also how much does one thing affect another thing?
Right. Yeah.
And so something like the level of immigration has very little effect on Social Security's finances. Something like the birth rate's got a massive effect on it. How long people are living, that's got a massive effect on it. Are we raising benefits over time? Massive effect. So it's thinking about the policy levers that really matter here. And so immigration is just not a huge factor.
It's just not many people, other than, like you said, children. But the reason they're getting paid is because their dad died. You know what I'm saying? So that, the interesting thing, Andrew, is I'm seeing more and more, older men having younger kids, and now they're getting I'm seeing that a lot now. Well, not a lot, but I never saw that until about 5-6 years ago. And now every year I'm getting that more and more clients who got children who they get a benefit.
If your child is under either 16 or 18, I forget, and you are retired, you can claim a child benefit. And again, this is something, there's very little money in it.
Right.
But by and large, people should support their own kids.
Right.
So it's, especially if you're a higher income person. But something like that, there's an issue of how much political capital do you put into changing something like that, where you get virtually no money out of it, versus saying, look, I'm just not going to have that fight.
Right.
And so often with these sorts of issues, there's matters of principle.
Right.
And spousal benefits. Say, just an example, if you are the non-working spouse of a high income worker, you could get a higher Social Security benefit that would be paid to a low income woman who worked and paid in all her life. Now that's it's just, Social Security has the idea of equity and adequacy. We pay based on how much you paid in, and we pay based on need. It's some combination. This non-working spouse of a high-income worker neither needs the money nor paid in. And so, something like that, it's just not necessary. At the same time, is that the fight you want to have?
Right.
I mean, you can kind of moderate it, but it's just the real fight is over just how much do we want benefits to grow
100%
above average incomes.
And then how much 100%. How much we want benefits to grow, that's the issue. And at the end of the day, where's the funding come to pay for those benefits that have been promised? And that's the challenge. All right, last one, then we'll get you out of here because I know it's going up an hour and a half. But Cute Humor says, what's the precedent? Now, Cute Humor obviously, probably went to Stanford or something like that, because he said the president as opposed to precedent. Oh boy, these typos. So he said, what is the president in 2033? Or he said, what if the president is in 2033 is Democrat and won't do the executive order to 2050 per month? Okay, so I think he's going back to your executive order, essentially saying the max we're going to do is about 2050 a month. What if the president is Democrat and then he won't do the executive order? I guess he's asking what then. Any thoughts on that? I mean, that's kind of far out.
I'm guessing, the strategy we talk about of paying full benefits up to the median, which is somebody getting around 2050 a month. I think that was the number. And then just capping after that. Now that would work for a Republican president, a fiscally conservative president, would just reset the terms of debate. It is an interesting issue of what if you had a Democratic president whose preference would be, let's just raise taxes to fix the whole problem. Well, in that case, they're probably not going to do it. But then you can come back to them and say, look, you have the power to do this. People are being thrown into poverty today who don't have to be in poverty because you could reallocate the benefits. Now, they'll have to defend that. Given how the media works, it probably won't be hard for them to do it. But you could make the case at that point that people are needlessly being thrown into poverty because you want to pay higher benefits to rich people. So, but this is in general a strategy that works as an opening bid by fiscal conservatives who don't want to fix the entire funding gap using taxes.
And that's the challenge. I mean, you got like we said at the beginning, you got the Democrats want to, raise the taxes. The Republicans don't want taxes. And they don't want, Democrats don't want to cut benefits. Republicans don't want to raise taxes. And you're going to have to come to a happy medium at some point.
Both parties face a problem. I do think the problem is larger for Republicans in that
absolutely.
Right now you have, say, going into the election, you have both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris saying, I'm not going to cut benefits for anyone. But Harris would be like, look, I'll raise taxes on people. If she didn't have any for the Democrats, their problem is largely a political one, and that they can't get the tax increases they want to get. Republicans have this problem where they're promising now not to cut benefits, but Republicans are still traditionally the low tax party.
Right.
And saying I'm not going to cut benefits for anyone, it is really hard to be the low tax party over the long term. I mean, you could fudge it for a couple of years, but honestly, if you look at the budget numbers going out, it really is a Social Security and Medicare problem. The rest of the budget is balanced. It's a Social Security and Medicare problem. And in both cases, the problem is paying more and more benefits to people. With Social Security, you can see it right in the data of benefits, monthly benefits just going up and up and up. With Medicare, it's a little more subtle, but you can look at the number of Medicare beneficiaries. You can look at inflation for healthcare costs. Both of those things are affordable. With Medicare, it's something the Medicare trustees call intensity of usage. I forget the exact phrase. It's not the cost of an MRI. It's how many MRIs are you getting? It's not the rising cost of a hip replacement. It's more and more people getting these things. We're in fact using more and more healthcare. At some point, you got to dial it back and just tell higher income people, look, if you want more and more of this, you're going to have to start footing more and more of the bill. It's sort of common sense, but politically it's very, very difficult. So the Medicare end is more difficult because it's an insurance program. Healthcare is really complex. Social Security is much simpler. Like, we just don't need to be paying you $100,000 a year.
That's what happens at any single payer. It's always going to be rationed for healthcare. Always, single payer always means rationing. So we're going to ration. You make more than $50,000 a year, you need a hip replacement, you're on your own, pal. We'll pay the first, $100,000 or whatever, $10,000. But
and it's not that's insurance. Again, I'm not principally a healthcare guy, but what makes it difficult is insurance should pay the really high cost, not the really low cost.
100%. But
people think, oh, my insurance is not going to pay for my birth control. Well, birth control costs nothing. But if you get run over by a truck, that's something you can't afford to pay for. It's incredibly expensive. That's what the insurance is for.
Well, believe it or not, my dad used to work. Remember NCPA out of Dallas National?
Yeah.
All right. My dad used to work there, and then he was on Tato a little bit. And he died last year. But he used to say, we run health insurance, this equivalent, like we'd run an auto claim for getting an oil change. You never go to your oil, your auto insurance to say, I need an oil change. Let me run this through insurance. That's what we do with our own medical insurance. He was saying that 30 years ago.
So what you could do on the Medicare end for high income people have a higher deductible. Say, okay, the first X amount out of pocket is for you. And then we kick in. That's how an insurance program should really work. But I think for political reasons, we don't do it. The interesting thing on healthcare is we have this idea, well, these other countries all have universal healthcare, so you're not being hit with these out-of-pocket costs. Bernie Sanders will say that. You could look in the data across countries, our out-of-pocket rate, the percentage of healthcare we pay out of pocket is lower than countries like France and stuff. And it used to be, 2/3 of healthcare spending was out of pocket. It went back to 1960 or something. Today it's like 15%.
No, 100%. I wrote a book. I talk about that. You can see the amount of money we pay for healthcare out of pocket versus now. It's like, it's insane how little out of pocket we pay for the services, which has a perverse incentive.
So you're not paying attention. Most of the time these things happen, you have no idea how much that would cost. And so
it increases the incentive to go see more help as well. So there's a perverse incentive because we don't see the cost. We're going to go to the doctor more when we probably don't need to go for a hangnail.
Americans use it. People think the problem with healthcare in America is more expensive. Look, it is more expensive for a variety of reasons. But layered on top is we simply use more healthcare than other countries do. We go to the doctor more. We don't think twice about going to a specialist. Oh, you got sore knee, MRI for you. Right. So there was something I read, which I think is inaccurate, which is like the city of Pittsburgh has more MRI machines than the entire country of Canada or something like that. And I think that turned out to be true, but we just have tons and tons of this stuff. And look, if you need an MRI, it's great. You can just go in the next day and get it. This is a kind of an off story, but when I was living in London in grad school, a friend of mine, a woman, had to get an ultrasound. And I think she had to wait 3 or 4 weeks to get it. Literally at the same time, my mom called me, and the golden retriever had a heart murmur, which the vet told her was in any case inoperable. But the golden retriever is in for an ultrasound the next day. I kid you not. That's it's good, I guess, but this is going to cost money.
Oh man, I freaking love America. Oh my goodness, that is, of all of our problems, we got it made, man. I just wish more people recognize how good we have it. Your golden retriever got an ultrasound the next day.
You go over the border wearing a dog suit, and you
all these. Anyway, I'll let you go, Andrew. This is good stuff. So we're again. So Andrew, where can we find you? Obviously on American. I got the American Enterprise Institute. You're on Twitter. You have your own blog or just on Twitter. What else?
I'm on Twitter/X. It's at BiggsAG.
Biggs AG on Twitter.
Biggs, which I've been told by a close family member, reads as Big Sag, which is, I guess, getting more accurate by the day. I also have a new Substack, which is called Little Known Facts. And this is not a lot of people do Substacks because they want to make money. This is free, but it's a nice vehicle for getting.
Okay, so littleknownfacts.substack.com. Oh,
I
didn't. I spelled it wrong. Hold on a second. Little known facts. I spelled it wrong. Hold on a second. Substack.com. Cool. That's there you go. Right on. Sweet. I'm subscribing right now. All right, good.
And that's just, I've only started that in the last month or so. But AEI.org, I'm at the American Enterprise Institute, and you can find my stuff there, and obviously lots of other great stuff. AEI is a great think tank. I occasionally write in the Wall Street Journal, so there's a variety of things online there. But I love doing
I just got the Substack thing on the show notes. My man Chuck B says, "Yeah, Big Sag. That's how I read it. Yeah, Big Sag. So Big Sag on Twitter, and you're not going to Blue Sky. You're going to stay on Twitter, are you? Hopefully.
I don't think I'd be allowed there. But maybe I can petition to Elon to get my Twitter handle changed to something a little more flattering."
I just posted the for your AEI page as well. So if you want to read some of Andrew's recent stuff, we didn't get into it tonight. Maybe we can save this for a different discussion on WEP and GPO. But he posts a couple of things, and he's writing on Wall Street Journal quite a bit as well. So you're a good man, Andrew. I don't care what they say out there in Oregon. All right, my man Kirk is from Oregon too. Kirk's he just had his 4th child, if memory serves, and even he's surviving the insanity of Portland, Oregon. So if Kirk and Andrew can survive Oregon, we're still headed in the right direction, man. That's a fact. So much obliged, Andrew. And I appreciate you taking time out of your today to get here. I know you're on vacay and stuff, got other things to do, but really appreciate you being here, man.
Great. Thanks a lot, Josh. Happy to talk anytime.
Thanks, Andrew. Well, I'm going to stay on for a little bit longer, guys. So Andrew, we'll see you, man, if you just want to hop off whenever you can. But hey, so I want to talk about let's see.
All right, have a good one. Thank you,
Andrew. Thanks, man. Oh, maybe I won't stay on. Oh, here's Pablo. All right, so that was fantastic. Andrew just got off. Hold on a second. Is that you, Coco? All right, we'll watch here a little bit. That was good. That was good, man. Andrew crushes. I completely disagree with the $100,000 thing. I don't like when you're using the amount of money you get your Social Security as your threshold. I think it should be how much money you have from other sources as well. Because, with that said, I see what Andrew's saying is that, you think you want to stay in chat? Well, you thought, I don't know. I didn't know, because I just said it was only gonna be an hour or so, and he's on a trip up there in Seattle. Oh man, really? Hope you didn't find that rude. Oh man, I thought I was being rude by keeping him an hour and a half. You really pulverize? You think you want to stay in chat? Oh, now I feel bad. I thought I didn't want to keep him this long, to be honest with you. Oh boy, did you guys think I cut Andrew off? Oh, that's gonna make me feel bad. I love Andrew. All right, let me know if you guys think I cut him off if you want to stay in chat, because oh man, he did. Eesh. All right, you don't think I was rude? All right. Carl says he misinterpreted me. Oh man, you guys all thought that? Oh, now I feel like a dick. Yeah, I think Andrew is well informed and curiously idealistic too. I wouldn't. Nope, not okay. So Max, well, you're just one guy though, Max. Nope, not rude. All right. Did you guys think I was rude to him? I hope not. I mean, he was here for an hour and a half. I was like, I didn't think he'd want to stay that. I thought I was being rude by keeping him on, so I wanted to get him out of here. Oh boy, I'm not trying to be a dick. Oh boy. I'm Mark from North Carolina. I'm Mark from North Carolina. Okay. He's only he's got kids. He doesn't have a Pablo, so he's not lonely. Okay, good. So a couple of you guys saying not rude. It's kind of last minute thing. I said, you want to talk about your, all right, well, I'm going to, whatever. Maybe I need to be rude. Maybe I'll get more viewers if I'm rude. I start bashing people. You weren't rude at all, but not sure how we interpreted that. You were not, oh man, for real? Eesh. Okay, now I'm all embarrassed. Oh boy, I'll have to email and say, I hope I didn't just come across rude. Everyone thought you might have wanted to stay longer. I'm like, dude, oh. I'm not sure how he interpreted that. Okay. Good. I was trying to be respectful this time. Did not think he wanted to. Okay, good. All right. All right. Well, that's as long as this lady, she knows what's up. All right, good. So I'll go with what this lady says over stupid pulverizer any day of the week. Let me tell you it all. The look on my face was priceless, Joshy. What? No, he's in Seattle with his family. He's up there on a trip with his kid. Not trying to be a dick, but is that what I said? Not trying to be a dick? Did I say that? I didn't say that, did I? Not trying to be a dick, but I gotta let you go or something like that. Eesh. I didn't say that, did I? Not trying to be a dick, but I'm a pulverizer. Well, Chuck B, you're the one who just said that you think I was being respectful this time. Chuck B's the one who said, pulverizer said, but I was being rude. Wait, Chuck B, you're the one who just offended me 2 seconds ago. What the hell, man? Like Chuck B's like, no, you weren't being rude. Now he's like, oh, I'm a pulverizer. Pulverizer the one who said, start this whole thing. I mean, he seemed to be willing to stay longer. Oh, Chuck B. Oh, now you're messing me. Oh, man. All I care about, we have a lady on here from Tejas, and if she says I wasn't being rude, I wasn't being rude. Well, I didn't say that, did I? Not trying to be a dick. I didn't say that to Andrew, did I? No. Not trying to be a dick, but I got to cut you off? No, I didn't say anything like that. I voted for Kamala. Let's move on. This is just ridiculous. Dude, look, see, I'm a kind-hearted guy there, freaking American legend. I'm Mark from North Carolina. Did I say it's time for you to go? I didn't say that, did I? All right, Chuck B. Now. Maybe. All right, I'll email him and said I was okay. I'll just email him. Say I didn't want you to stay on longer than you wanted to. I didn't want you to not be rude to me. I don't care, but all right. Good. Okay. And I didn't know if you wanted to do that knucklehead right there either. All right, so I just think if you're gonna have what did I just walk into? Apparently, I was being rude to my guest by telling him to sign off. I didn't mean it like that. But he was already on for an hour and a half. We're having a good conversation. I didn't want him to feel like he was being, telling pulverizer, just telling how rude I was. I'm going to say that, man. I'm going to say, not nice to C block your. Oh, my goodness. But I was like, so anyway, Don, we're on it for an hour and a half. I was like, I just asked Andrew like 3 hours ago if he wanted to jump on board. And he's like, let me see what, the family's up to. I said, all right. I did tell Andrew to sign up. Yeah, but I said, sign up. You don't have to, I kind of meant you'd have to be here. Seems like I'm in hot water again. We're talking about the Trinity, Jill. Anyway, I'll email Andrew and say, pulverizer said I basically did the equivalent of hanging up on him. I hope they didn't find that rude. But we were on for an hour and a half. I didn't want him to feel like he had to be obligated to keep talking. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I wanted to talk about weapon GPO. We didn't get to that. And I know if I would have gone down that rabbit hole, it'd be on for another hour and a half. I didn't want him to have to feel obligated to talk to your old buddy Josh. You just jumped off my lap. All right, so my issue with the whole thing, I got no qualm with like saying at the end of the day, if your income is above a certain threshold, you should, there's some, we should, some kind of thing. I got no qualm. I just don't think it should be all based on Social Security. I mean, I think that's, kind of like somebody said earlier, like it should be, I think it's Paul Francis, he said it should be phased in or something like that. I mean, there's a million different ways we can look at this, but to just say to somebody, hey, you make $96,000 a year in Social Security, and that someone said, yeah, but I saved all my money into Social Security because I was self-employed. Now you're going to reduce it. Now I think Andrew was right. I think I made a mistake. I said they're only making 160,000 a year. It wouldn't be 160,000 a year to get the 96,000. It'd be 160,000 for the husband and 160,000 for his wife. So they're making 320. They do have a responsibility to start saving some money, and that's just a factor. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm making more than the thing here, the 160. You know, we save $24,000 a year, and that's even not. I should say more than that, frankly. You know what I'm saying? But we also got 4 kids. He wasn't saying he always wants to cut off Social Security for people making over median income. He didn't say that. What he was saying is he'd say, hey, we're going to have a median income of roughly $2,100, and we're going to say that's going to be the max you can make. It was one of his thoughts. And look, I mean, that's controversial. That'll never fly. But I see where he's going with that. He's saying, look, compared to Canada, actually, I think Andrew, what he would say is we get rid of, not only do we not get rid of the cap, we reduce the cap, like in Canada and all these other European countries, essentially, where they say at the end of the day, you're going to get no more than $2,100, and the cap would be like $75,000 a year. I got no qualm with that at all, frankly. That would be fantastic. Say we're going to make sure that no one is in poverty, but no one's going to be freaking eating crab legs on Social Security. With that said, we're also not going to have a cap at 160. Never mind, get rid of it. We'll just make it. Yeah, 100%. I completely. Yeah, that's a good idea, Tom. If you make above a certain amount, you should be able to opt out of Social Security entirely. 100%. I completely agree. That's a great idea, actually. Look at Tom come with a great idea. Every now and again, Tom shows up with good. That's a great idea. Say, look, you want to rely on the government? We can do it for you. You're going to pay the 6.2. You don't want to rely on the government, you're going to pay up to $75,000 like they do in Canada. And after that, you're on your own. I get no qualm with that. None of that's going to happen. I mean, it's all great to think about. It's not going to happen. So the question would be is how do you fix it? And Andrew's saying, well, if you're making $100,000 a year in Social Security, you should get a benefit reduction. And I think it should be looked at more than just that's what I was asking him. What do you define as rich? When we first started, he was saying rich people. I said, well, what's a rich person? He said the max you can make in Social Security. See, I just disagree with that. I don't think that should be considered rich. I think because that excludes people who've got serious outside money in there. And I don't think that's the way it should be. I mean, look, that's just me. I think because I'm all in favor of once you make more than $1 million a year, you no longer have long-term capital gain, tax preference treatment on long-term capital gain or qualified dividends. I think there should be a wealth tax. I guarantee Andrew disagrees with that 100%. That's okay. We can still be friends. But I just think at the end of the day, we shouldn't, because remember, Social Security is really the people who make the bigger amounts of money are upper middle class people. It'd be me, your old buddy Josh. And a lot of these people are small business owners. And a lot of small business owners are putting all their efforts into their business. And, while they might save, they're not saving probably enough as they should because they're really trying to make the business work. That's what they're doing. And a lot of these people can't sell their business for any money because the business is the person like me. My business is me. I'm not going to be able to sell it to anybody. So there's no light at the end of the tunnel where I can capitalize on it. It just doesn't work like that because my business is who I am. And so the minute I stopped doing my business, there was no business profits left. And so my number one savings is Social Security by force. Not that I want it to be, but it is. And so if they were to say, but Josh, you made so much money on Social Security, we should reduce that. I say, yeah, but I wasn't saving other money because I had all these other expenditures, never mind raising family and all that. And on top of that too, I think there's something to be said about, high income earners. We also want to reward them for having children, if that makes sense. And a lot of high income earners, spousal benefits, or even 2 family earners, we don't want to reduce their Social Security because I think that would give them a perverse incentive not to have more children. And instead of immigration, why don't we just start having babies? And the way we can have babies is to have people they can retire a lot more than $21,000 or $2,100 a month. Now, Andrew's saying $2,100 a month is a median. Well, that's per person. So it'd be like he was saying, between husband and wife, that's $50,000 a year, right there, Social Security. It's not taxed either. So for a fact, if you've got $50,000 Social Security and that's all you got, between a husband and wife, you're not poverty. You're not impoverished. You get 100% tax-free income, $50,000 a year. That's a good place to start. But I just think we're so deep into it now with Social Security, with people using that as a retirement account, like I've done, that we say, I don't know how you do that. Nobody wants kids anymore. You want to sell my business to my kid? Sure, for $1 million. Your pearly whites would make bank on OnlyFans and lonely widows. Yeah, no, dude, I'm Irish. If you know what I'm saying, if you know what I'm saying there, Carl. They would not find that very attractive, if you know what I mean. Us Irish people, we let's just put it this way, we're light downstairs. But that only work for young people, not for people who paid in way more over time. No. Good point. Yeah. Priests can, interesting. Priests can not opt out of Social Security. Went up. Interesting. Just Catholic priests, or it can be pastors, or what? Any kind of minister can opt out of Social Security? Let's see. Take my surplus over $2,100. I may decide to build an armored bulldozer I paid in under. Yeah, what I'm saying. They're not going to reduce it for people on the current system. There's not. It's not going to happen. Look, I can't stress this. Look, anything can happen. But the idea they're going to suddenly say, Andrew, that's what I was saying. On December 31st, you're making $3,800 a month in Social Security. On 1 January, if you retire, you're only making $2,100. It's just not going to happen, man. It's not. It's kind of like you can't win that battle if you're a congressional guy, and there's no blue ribbon commission that's going to say that. Of course, it'll be phased in over time if that were to be the case. I still don't know what's wrong with. Remember how Andrew is saying, and I agree with Andrew 80% of the time, 90% of the time. But remember how he was saying, it's very interesting how the COLAs used to be congressionally approved. So inherently, there's politics at play, all right? And so then they said, we're going to make it so Social Security has got to be legislative action to fund Social Security. Right now, it's not the law. Well, what's wrong with just changing the law? We didn't really get into it that much at all. But right now, it's the law that Social Security can't be funded with general revenue. Well, there's a simple fix. Change the law. This isn't a constitutional amendment or anything. We just got to change the law. 51 senators and for 218 congressmen and the president. That's it. You change the law. So now we can fund it with general revenue. And before, Social Security COLAs were subject to congressional action. Okay, it seemed like Social Security was working okay back then. And then when they got rid of congressional action for COLAs, that's when Social Security started getting exponentially more and more beneficial to people for Social Security benefit. If you just look, and I don't have it here, but if you just look at the benefits for Social Security relative to the median income back in the old days, relative to the benefits of Social Security now, and you can see the Social Security, like Andrew said, it's gone up exponentially for sure, relative to what it was going up back in the old days. And back in the old days, people weren't saving. You see what I'm saying? So we are much, much wealthier now as a retiree base by far than people in the 70s. It's not even close. It's just not close. And don't give me the argument everyone had a pension. It's just not true. And as such, what happened was that Congressional got out of the Social Security game, put over to a Blue Ribbon Commission, and the Blue Ribbon Commission made it worse. They made it worse. They made it much more beneficial to be on Social Security, which meant it much more likely to be insolvent at a certain time. Whereas in the past, because subject to congressional action, it wasn't this bad at all in terms of average wage index, cost of living adjustments were automatic and stuff. Just think about it. You got Texas. Give me an example. Texas, the teachers, and I imagine cops and whatnot, but I know the teachers are based on state legislator action. The state legislator isn't doing that much, man, to advance the cause of Texas pensioners an increase. They're just not, even though it's based on action of the state legislature. The teachers don't have as much pull as you think in Texas. And they might have more pull in New Jersey because they're far left union people. But it's not the teachers per se, it's the union as a whole, the union mechanism of all those people in New Jersey. Remember not traffic cops, the toll booth operators used to make $100,000 a year with a massive pension. Anyway, so he said there'd be, if you didn't phase in, he gave a good example that if you didn't phase it in, Jill, that it'd be people would respond quickly. They say, "Oh, I better respond quickly." I don't. That's not going to happen. Look, I keep have to say this. Anything can happen, but it's not going to happen. They're not going to just say one day, "Sucks to be you, Jill," but for freaking Carol, she's good. It's just no way. Make sure to do a video that I was right. Yeah, I'm not going to do that video. No, it's COLAs are not the problem. It's the average wage index is the problem. So all these people say, "Oh, we should go back the way it was." They don't know what the hell they're talking about. I've been saying this for years on this channel. It's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Not you, James, but people say, "Oh, we should go back the way it was. Social Security is not keeping up with the cost of inflation." I said, you have no clue what you're talking about. The average wage index has been a panacea for those of us who are going to take Social Security soon, because the average wage index has increased significantly higher than cost of living adjustments. It's just a fact. And when you factor in your benefit, which is based on a COLA, your benefit is based on the AWI, average wage index, it's been a boon for us. And Andrew said, I got to find that article. This is the day Social Security went insolvent, from like December 7th, 1977 or something like that. That's fantastic. What a great article. I want to look at that. There's a criteria for ministers, including religious objection. They must be conscientiously opposed to accepting Social Security benefits based on religious principles. Interesting. COLAs had a vote on them, though. Had to be voted on. And actually, if you look at COLAs, it's been a while since I looked at this. If you looked at the COLAs for Social Security, it wasn't anywhere near the cost of living, the actual benefits, the CPI increase in the 60s and 70s. It's been a long time since I looked this up. I remember I did a video on that. I said, man, when congressional legislative action took, the COLAs were higher, but the CPI was much higher. You see what I'm saying? So the COLAs did not keep up. It was crazy. I'm not going to. Right, I'm saying. I'm going to start a church too. What I'm saying. Oh, 1%. Well, no, because he'd still give you delayed earnings credits. So if you got 2,100 as your median Social Security, your max Social Security benefit, you still get an 8% increase each and every year with the delayed earnings credits. What I thought was very interesting about Andrew is that he said raising the retirement age doesn't really yield us that much of a benefit. I completely agree with that. Completely. Yeah, 1%. If a family has one person working, making 168. Yeah, Andrew is what Andrew was saying. Somewhat correct me. He's like, well, if you're making the max of 100,000 a year, that's the max that you made and the max that your wife made as well. And that's true. So if you're making 96,000, which is the max right now, roughly, that means both you and your wife had the max earnings for 30 years. Both of you guys did. If it's just me and then Charlotte has half my earnings, I'm not making 96,000. I'm making whatever that is, 72,000 or something like that. And that's not max. But, that was still much, much higher than the median 2,100. I just think, I don't like that median. That's too low. Unless we cut back on the wage cap. We say, no, it's not going to be 168 anymore. It's going to be 75. I got no problem doing that. Say, look, no, we just want to make sure Social Security is a safety net as it's supposed to be, which is to make sure there's no poor people who retire. I got no qualm with that at all. So we're going to give you the max benefit be $2,100 a month, but your max tax you got to pay is 70. You only have to pay tax on 75,000 a year. I think it's a freaking great solution. I'm gonna have to do a video on that. How about changing the max delayed from 70 to 69 or 68? How much that would save? Yeah, Greg, I don't think it would save that much, man, because not that many people do it. Fiesta Island. Yeah, I completely agree. Let's see this ultimate thing here. This is why I think the whole thing is, in my opinion, kind of silly. It has to be done from payroll tax and the trust fund, which would be exhausted. And I just say, why? Well, it's a law. Well, all right, laws can be changed. And Andrew wasn't saying this. I'm just saying, I think a lot of this silliness revolves around Social Security going bankrupt is the way that is designed as it is today, which has been changed a million times a Sunday. So why can't we change it again to say it can come out of general revenue? I don't get why this is such an issue. Well, because we want to self-fund it. Well, it'll still be predominantly self-funded with a little bit of kicker into the general revenue. I don't understand why that's such an issue. I don't understand. Yeah, in fact, I got an article today that the Trump train is already rolling. The consumer survey, people are much more confident. Things are happening, man. It's it's good. Things are happening. So I'm happy to see that. I will skip. Carl gets talk about me having a soft heart. How many times have I quoted Carl here today already? He's like, I skip over his comments. Josh, you're making me sad because you, Harry. What the freaking Harry? You're banned, dude. You're banned. Carl says, Josh, skipping on my comments. Boomers win again at the expense of others. Shocking. Carl. Oh boy. I started doing yoga at home today. Is that 57 flavors? Yes, sir, it is, especially if you wore those yoga pants, which is, now you know what I'm talking about Irish men, their Celtic spirit. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows, of course I read the women's comments first. Dude, the last thing I want is a helmet party, dude. Come on. Well, come on. We don't have many women on YouTube, and especially on my channel. So of course I'm going to read the women's comments first. We don't want a helmet party. Dude, I've been a helmet party. I was in the infantry. Trust me. You don't want that. You want chicks, dude. Chicks make the party grow. Men don't make the party go. What men do is we drink, we get pissed off, there's no chicks, we fight, and then we drink some more. All right? You got to have the chicks. That's where the excitement, you know how it is. When there's a party and there's no chicks, it's boring. The minute a good-looking girl comes in, hell, it doesn't have to be good looking. A minute a lady comes in, it changes the whole dynamic. Chicks make the Army, well, 100%, dude. 100% they make the Army fail. Absolutely. Especially combat arms. As a masculine I understand your bigotry. Chat, Josh. Helmet party. Sausage for chat, Josh. I don't get a chat, Josh. So, Josh, if I want to get the max Social Security benefit, when should I start? Is it the month after I turn 70 or the month I turn 70? I don't know off the top of my head, Harry. I think I don't know. He does. He's Carlita. Carlita. All right, thank you. Thank you. I was not rude. Thank you. Good. Thank you. All right, well, I can get out of here, my friends. Chloe not going to watch. What, Chloe? What show are we watching, Chloe? Coco. She's back from University of Georgia today. My son did not get into UGA, which is, we were kind of expecting that, but a lot of UGA, University of Georgia, is like 60%. Actually, let's take a look here real quick. University of Georgia. Let's see. Oh, yeah, dude. Trust me. Carl, I know gray divorce is a thing. 100%. 100%. Dude, trust me. I know gray divorce is a thing. That doesn't mean, I mean, look, man. I don't know what's going to happen. You know, we've been married 25 years. I'm happy. But anything could happen. Dude, I was talking to a guy not too long ago. His wife of over 25 years just up and left him one day. She goes, I just want to leave. Dude, it happens all the time. All the time. Could that happen with me and my wife? Probably not. I mean, probably not. It could. Probably not. You know, at the end of the day, as Catholics, you know, we still recognize that we do take some what's the word? Not solace. What's the word I'm looking for? Seriousness. And when you get married, you're not supposed to divorce. You know, you can't just say, and try, you know, Charlotte's not going with another dude. You know what I'm saying? So not because I'm so great, because I'm so ungreat. She's like, I don't want to go for another dude. So at the end of the day, she's not going for another guy. That's all there is to it. Vows. Yeah. We take our vows seriously. We're, you know, in the biblical, what two join, man can unjoin, or whatever the hell it is. Can't remember. But we take that very seriously. And as such, you know, and she's not going for another dude. I'm not going for another chick. Could we, you know, find a way at some point we sleep in different beds or something like that? Sure, 100%. But we're Catholic, man, and we take that seriously. That's just a fact. Again, I mean, it's not, you shouldn't be getting divorced if you're Catholic. You shouldn't. Exactly. Yeah, that's one. And that's the other. Now, it's very clear in the Bible that if someone's cheating on somebody, you can get divorced. But trust me, Charlotte ain't cheating on me, and I'm not cheating on her. And as such, that ain't going to happen. So the only way we get to, and I don't drink, so I'd never yell at her or punch her or anything like that, and, you know, in a drunken rage because I don't drink. And she doesn't drink, so she'd never throw freaking, you know, I don't know, what did my mom, you know, lampshades or lamps at my dad when they were drunk. And, you know, I mean, just as a little kid watching them fight, like physically fighting, my dad, you know, slogging her, my mom throwing lamps and stuff at her. That wasn't very fun. So I'll never do that. But, oh man, yeah. Yeah, I've talked. It's crazy. And then with Facebook leading people to old flings, I don't know what to like. I hope like fat huge or just because he's jacked, man. Believe it or not, Finney's jacked. He's probably got a little bit of weight on him, but he's jacked. And you can't. You see that roll, it makes him look fat, but when he's standing up, he's got muscles. Family court's tyrannical, 100%. Yeah, I know it. I just Pablo just wants some airtime. Yes, he did. It happens. I mean, people, they have this idea like these Facebook, these high school flings are going to come back. I don't know. I mean, I had girlfriends in high school. If someone, said, "Hey, Josh, remember me?" Would I be intrigued by that? I hope not. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. But but some people are. I find that kind of creepy in a way. It's like, man, you really think you can relive your past like that? But who am I? I don't judge people. I just find it, if I had a girlfriend that said, "Hey, remember me in high school?" I just connect with an old friend. She's a girl. We weren't girlfriends, boyfriends. And it's fun. It's fun reconnecting with her. But we were also in the Army together. Like she was in Fort Drum the same time I was in Fort Drum. So we knew each other in high school. We were pretty good friends in high school. With nothing romantic at all. And then when I was in Fort Drum, she was in Fort Drum. She was an MP and I was in the infantry. So we didn't really hang out that much. But she connected me after 30 years. And, I'll pick her up. She's coming to Atlanta and I'll pick her up from the airport. I can't wait. It's going to be fun. And I don't have any problem with that. It's nothing platonic. I don't know what that word is, platonic or something like that. But that dog has zero F's given 100%. But it's nothing there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, first of all, my wife is pretty hot. So you'd have to be pretty hot to even have me like even consider that. And on top of that, I'm not going to get anyone. I mean, dude, Charlotte's funny. She's hot. She's smart. And I'm married to her. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to violate that in some drunken stupidity. And that's really crazy. Nuts. Watch Karen email me that. I won't remember, Carl. Email me Karen Strike. Let's just put this. There's a lot of men. Too many men. Like, look here, man. I get. How do I want to say this? I just don't want to. When I don't watch YouTube. That I watch it for sports. I watch Mark Dice, a couple of the guys for politics. I watch Kwame Brown, Jason Whitlock, Clay Travis for sports. I watch some of these guys with shorter videos for politics, and I listen to Owen Benjamin on occasion, and some other stuff too. But generally speaking, I'm not watching these long podcasts. I'm listening to a book on tape by Outer Banks by Ann Siddons something. I forgot her name, and I've read a couple of her books. This book's not that good, at least not yet. But I just some of these long podcasts, I just don't listen to it that long. I bet Finney costs a lot to feed. Every week we're getting food, Jill. Yeah. Ain't that right, puppy? Yes, sir. Staying married is a huge part of a good retirement plan. Yep. Finney and Josh do the pulverizer diet, what I'm saying. But I mean, I just I'm on YouTube a lot, don't get me wrong, but I don't watch very many. I watched, some of y'all had sent me the thing with the Bill banging his 4%. Some chick was interviewing him about the 4% rule and stuff. And I had some disagreements with him, but it was a good video. And I don't know. For me, some of the stuff just bores me, to be perfectly honest with you. I can't lie to you. And some, even some conspiracy videos after a while, I'm just like, it kind of bores me. But, I'm just always thinking about what videos to do, frankly. That's always in my, I removed what comment? I thought it was too rude. What? Whoa, wait a second. Are we getting through to pulverizer? Pulverizer thought he was being too, I literally had never thought I'd see the day where Pulverizer thought he'd be too rude. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but this one, dude, that's funny. You didn't remove that one, I hope. That's funny. It was okay. It was a good video. It was okay. That's pulvy humor. I still wanted. She asked him at one point about the inflation adjustment, but not the way I was hoping she would have asked. And I said, "Dude, no, she's not. Oh, that's not rude. Come on, Pulverizer. When a woman tells that she loves but is not in love with you, she met another dude. It happened to my buddy in his first marriage. When a woman tells that she loves, I don't know what we're saying. What tells who that she loves? She loves you but is not in love. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. I don't envy any of these people going through that, man. I want more men and women to get married, have kids, raise good adults. I'm pro-marriage, but I wouldn't recommend young men today, sadly. Yeah. I get it. I mean, but I mean, I just, at this end of the day, it's what she loves you. Okay. I mean, I can't imagine, I was dumped twice, I think. Yeah, twice. And both times it sucks, dude, but I was young. I was like 19, 17 first time, 18 the second time or something like that. And but both time, one time was obviously want to go and work out, and that was fine. It still sucked though. I was like, dude, you can't dump me. And the first time it was like, I was just a dick. The relationship should never last as long as it did. You know what I'm saying? And it sucks. And I still to this day think about it. I was like, damn, it's just embarrassing how bad I was. You know what I'm saying? I'm literally embarrassed by that. I'm like, oh, because it's just not a good guy. And the whole point was I had no what's the word I'm looking for? No self-confidence. I said, well, I'm going to hurt her before she hurts me because it's inevitable she's going to hurt me. You see what I'm saying? So I was a dick to hurt her before she hurt me. And ultimately she said, I'm sick of you hurting me. I'm leaving you. I said, well, you can't leave me. And sure enough, she did. Until this day, I'm still like, oh, it's just embarrassing. And then you sober up, you wisen up, you get older and you get better. You know what I'm saying? But no, dude, I can't imagine, marriage of 25 years and I've had this story told me a million times. Wife just comes by both times, wife and husband. Wife comes home from work and she says, I'm out of here. I'm like, what happened? It's like, I found another guy. It's like, what, tonight? No, I've been with him. It's like, dude, I can't imagine the devastation of going through that. I can't imagine it. Yeah, no, I just, this is supposed to be about Social Security, not a romance channel. Freedom needs a lady in his life. Freedom Will Ring needs a lady. Finney gets ribeye and steak from. Now I'm trying to. If you guys got a good place to get, I got to find a better place. I don't know if I don't want to ship beef sent to me, and I've had a couple grass-fed beef places here. Their steaks just aren't that good. I was disappointed in them. And so I was like, I got to get a good place to get good pasteurized, not pasture like stupid Lewis pasture, that fraud, but pasture-raised grass-fed beef. I feel after reading my book on vivisection and how bad the vaccine pushes are on animal experiments, I can't have eating animals that are just thrown to the slaughterhouse literally, I can't have that. It hurts me. If you're not familiar with the vaccine purveyors, and look at the anti-vivisection league from England and whatnot, I don't know if it was in the United States back in the 1890s, 1900s and stuff. Animal experimenting was horrible, and it still probably is, frankly. Might not be horrible in the U.S., but in other countries, it's disgusting. And are we not doing animal experimenting on how we're raising our cattle, our pigs, our chicken in freaking factory farming? I think we are. And I think we shouldn't be doing that. It's going to cost you more. But I also want a good taste of a steak. See what I'm saying? So if you guys have some, and I don't mind buying if it's got to be shipped to me. I just would rather not ship. So if you know a place where I can get good quality steaks that taste good, that are humanely raised, I'd love to hear that. And if I got to order them, that's fine. But I'm just not sure how Costco does it. I looked into this about a year ago, and I wasn't convinced that they do this properly. And I don't know, maybe they do. And so we got a Whole Foods or something like that. They use something called Baldwin Farms. Presumably that's good. I'll go there. Probably might go there tomorrow. But I just got to be better, because it's reading what they've done to these animals to experiment for vaccines. It kills me. And these guys should all be sent to jail. If you're going to experiment on animals like that, you should go to jail. 50 Shades of Josh. Josh, from the Hallmark Channel. Dude, you can really, dude, you should take that. Dude, butchering, Andrew, is such a skill to know, man. Dude, I tell you, there's Jack Spirko talked about this. If we want a great lab to join Finney and Powell, let me know. I plan on leaving next year. Can't take. How old's the lab? Interesting. Carly, let me know, man. Send me some pictures. Send me some pictures, man. It won't be this year. We might be in the market. Andrew, Jack Spirko from the Survival Podcast has a great idea to have a traveling butcherer, like a traveling mechanic. You know, people raise it, but you can butcher. The guy shows up, he butchers right there on your premise. And the reason that's important is because something about you don't have to go through the FDA or something like that. You just go. If the guy does it on your campus, you can just do it. Andrew, I'd love to learn to do that, man. I went to a butchering thing here in Atlanta. It wasn't the butchering the whole cow. It was basically cutting up. It was already been cut up, and that's where I found about Denver steaks and stuff like that. That was very enjoyable. I learned a lot, but I don't do it on a regular basis. So I forgot to. I'd fly out to Ohio to watch you butcher something. I would literally, Andrew, fly. You're in Ohio, I think. I would fly out there for you to teach me how to do that. Absolutely. Venison doesn't do it for me, man. I had venison. The first time I had venison, I freaking was in love with it because I never had it before. Ever since then, I just it's too gamey. I just like beef. I'm a beef guy. But anyway, Andrew, I'd take you up on that 2 seconds flat, man. If you're ever gonna do that, I'd come out there. I'd just freaking watch it. I'd get my hands dirty. Absolutely. And so I went this thing they had in Atlanta, and they had the green egg thing, dude. It was, oh my goodness, it was just so good. It was so good. Like we're cutting off, and oh man, Wasita Farms in Wisconsin. All right, I have to look them up. Thanks, Bruce. Wasita Farms, Wisconsin. Let's check them out. And then we're gonna get out of here because you guys are really making me mad. Wasita Farms, Wisconsin. Have you already emailed me about that before, Bruce? Wasita Farms. See, the problem is shipping it is just so much more expensive. You really want to do local. Yeah, right here. That used to be a thing, except they have several farmers bring their beef to a central location. This you need to let the beef hang before cutting up. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. You have to get all the wild fat out of the venison. All right, I'm gonna get out of here, my friends. I'm looking up Wasita Farms right now. Subscribe for a chance to win a $100 gift card. Okay, good stuff. From our land to you. Ooh, okay. Shop online. Ooh, all right. Meat packages. Nice. Grass-fed beef. Ooh. Grass-fed beef crown. I want steaks. Beef packages. All right, I can get out of here, my friends. God bless. Appreciate you jumping on here with Andrew. Andrew Crushes. Make sure you sign up for a Substack. Follow him on Twitter, and it's a big sag. All right, God bless. We'll see you guys. I'm gonna contact Andrew. I'm gonna say Pulverizer says being mean, and Pulverizer's sad. He feels bad.